Oh, there we go. 1 minute early, Hayley. We're 1 minute early. I love that. Hi, everybody at the Elephant and Castle community. It's Nick from Retribe joining you once again. And this week we're having Hayley Fisk chat with us. Hayley was meant to be on a few weeks ago and is a COVID survivor now, and also a survivor of many other aspects of life, and a story that is inspirational, one I'm really looking forward to getting into. So thank you for joining us, Hayley. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. How was the dreaded vid?
It wasn't as bad as I thought, actually. I think probably because I was sort of three boosters in, maybe that's probably what saved it from getting pretty bad. So it just felt like a really awful head cold, and it was just I felt, yeah. So I thought, well, as I won't be at my best, I won't come and join you that day, but I'm okay. I'm a survivor.
I think it's a good reminder to let people know that we're coming into flu season. COVID is still around. Whatever you're doing is be careful. And I think you were even saying you let your guard down a little bit, right? Even after 2 years.
Yeah, unbelievable, isn't it? I was rigorous with, I still am with washing my hands, etc. But it must have just been, just one of those momentary lapses where I maybe didn't put hand sanitizer on, and I don't know. You just don't know really. But I was really careful for those 2 years. And yeah, you say let your guard down, and poof, here it came.
Oof. But I'm glad you're feeling better, and that you're here
Thank
with us
you.
today.
Thank you.
How's life treating you?
Yeah, not too bad, actually. Not too bad. Cannot believe that it's nearly Christmas. Cannot believe. Somebody must have stole that year, surely. Can't believe it.
Or years? I'm the same way. I'm kind of like in this thing of what, like, I must admit I'm getting depressed with the dark. Like it's really
Yes.
hitting me this year. Normally I don't even notice it, but for some reason the dark at 4:30 is really kind of ugh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially because it's raining, and especially
Oh,
because now I have like after school picking up kids duties, which I've never had before.
oh, I don't envy you. I remember when I used to pick my children up, without fail, it used to start raining between 3 and 3:15 and then carry on until at least 3:30 when you're soaked through, and then you get home and it stops
Yeah,
every time.
yeah, it's madness. It's funny how resilient the children are though. And I think back to when I was a kid growing up in Canada, and I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I'd have to walk 2 kilometers to school. I
Oh,
say
wow.
kilometers because that's what it is in Canada, but a mile and a half to school, and it would be -20 sometimes, and I'd be by myself, and it would be dark, and it would just be something we just did, and I've got like a couple of stepsons, and they're like 6 and 10, and if they get wet, and they'll have 13. There's three of them, but if they get wet feet or wet trousers and stuff, they just ride with it. Whereas now, me and my age and becoming quite soft, I really hate getting wet feet.
I know, it's awful, really, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
I used to walk about a mile and a half to school actually in all weathers because there was no, there was no thought about getting a lift. The buses didn't tend to run sort of where I was, so yeah, it was a walk through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's get it. That's a little nice kind of opener.
yeah,
Some moan about the weather and not
yeah.
getting wet feet. But I know a little bit about your story, but I'd like to know more about where you grew up, and what life was like for you growing up and becoming a mom, and then we can get into that day where your life changed.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I was a council estate girl, out all hours till the street lights came on to go in. That was kind of our life. Used to love a game of run out. Probably a few younger ones might not remember that, but we used to have great fun. I was a latchkey kid. My mum was always working. She was a single mum, so she was always working. So I suppose in some senses we were children, but in other senses we grew up quite quick because I wouldn't dream of letting my sort of 6-year-old light a fire with a gas thing. I wouldn't
Mm,
dream of it nowadays, but in them days it was just the norm. My brother had put the potatoes on, my sister would go and do some, it was kind of that way of life.
where did you
Um,
grow up?
well, I grew up in Stevenage to start with.
Hmm.
I was in
Yeah.
Stevenage in Hertfordshire. But then at the age of 9, we moved to a place called Houghton Regis, which is in Bedfordshire. And that's where I sort of stayed until I met my ex-husband. And then I moved where I am still now, down into sunny Kent.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just want to kind of get a geographical there of
Okay.
where you grew up and stuff.
Yeah.
So carry on. So you're growing up, you're a latchkey kid,
Mm-hmm.
and then and I imagine you're learning a lot about life.
Yeah.
And then how did that kind of go into your teens and becoming a young woman?
Well, it was weird actually, because I didn't know we were moving from Stevenage. It was kind of I think it was a council estate exchange. So one night I've come home from, I think I'd just joined Brownies, and I was so excited, and sort of looked around. I thought, why are there all boxes here? And it's just weird. And then the next day I was sort of like placed in the back of a lorry, not in a kidnapping kind of way, but I was placed in the back of a lorry, and then we traveled for what felt like forever, and we came to our new home. And that was really quite a shock, because I never knew, wasn't ready for it. So I had to kind of relearn and go to school. Sadly, I was bullied because I was the new girl. Unfortunately, that's the norm, I think. And I was bullied for quite a few years, to be fair, until one day I decided enough's enough, and I sort of hit back. So I think that's possibly where in my teens, or my late teens, I was really a big adversary of bullying. Don't do it. It's not nice. It's horrible being, in those shoes. And I guess from there, I suppose it was always, I wanted to help people. Intrinsically, I think my career has gone in a way that I want to help people, whichever way it was. I started recruitment, and that was helping people into a job. I started my own business, and that was helping them create a lovely home. And then, wellness, things like, it was ways of helping people, possibly making them better, feel better, or even just happier, really.
Is that I spit the foundation of my life today is like service towards others.
Yeah.
I used to be an ice hockey player. I used to be a TV presenter. I used to be an entrepreneur running my own company, and a producer and a director. And I never felt any kind of, I enjoyed it, but I never felt any passion towards it. And it wasn't only till I had this kind of huge realization in my life around 45 years old that I needed to make some changes. And I found that by helping others, it gave me this, I want to say a love, a zest for life that I used to have when maybe I was drinking, and doing other things that would kind of fill the holes. But now it is helping other people fill this hole, and it makes me feel complete, and it gives me a purpose and a passion. It's become the same thing. You think it's maybe because your need to help now is kind of derives from the fact that maybe as a child you weren't getting a lot of help yourself, and that you growing up a latchkey kid and having to cook and clean for yourself when you're 6 years old. It's tough, because that's the time when you really want children just to know unconditional love. I heard it someone speak the other day, and they said that you do not need to teach children independence. And that really, they said, all you need to do is give them unconditional love. And I was like, wow, I thought that by me teaching these boys how to clean up after themselves, how to, make sure that you wipe out the sink after you spit toothpaste in it, all these things that kind of annoy me. Right? I'm thinking I'm teaching them because I'm giving them skills in life. But this guy was like, they're going to learn that when they need to learn that. And what you need to be doing right now is just giving them unconditional love, and not feeling like every move they make is being scrutinized. Because that's, I'm a new stepdad. I'm new at this. And I'm learning, and it's just like, wow, so anyway, off a little bit tangent there. Do you think maybe your need to help now is because as a youngster you weren't getting the attention or the love or the help that you desired?
Absolutely. I literally, you've just hit the nail on the head, because I did have to learn, and we learned quick in those days, fight or flight, really. But yes, I think you just saying that has made me sort of briefly sort of have a check. And I was always looking for a father figure, and I was always looking for a mother figure. And I would see on the TV how this perfect nuclear family would be. And I'm like,
Mm.
I want that. I want that. And the problem is, I suppose, is it's very difficult. You might want something, but you don't necessarily know what it is you want, because it's an overall thing, isn't it? It's I want this, 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 this. But it's, if you break it down, you know, do you want that perfect family that on the outside looks amazing but on the inside is awful? Or do you want, do you
Mm.
know what I mean? There's so many different aspects. And I found that I was forever searching for something. There was a void for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And how did you start to look for ways to fill that hole growing up before you found the purpose and the passion that you found now?
um I think for me, I sought solace in food, which became a bit of an addiction, because that to me was the comfort. You know,
Mm.
if you're feeling awful, you know, grab a donut or whatever it was. And I sought solace in food, I think. And it was kind of, and then there's that spiral, isn't it? Because you eat the food, then you become bigger, and then you don't like yourself, so you eat the food, and then you just go into this spiral, don't you? And I suppose in some sense, because I was an outgoing, gregarious person, and I say was, I'm getting back there, but obviously we'll talk about that in a minute. But I was this shy child that became this gregarious, and I think I chose humour to hide a lot of what, you know. And I would take the mickey out of me first, so they didn't, and if they did, it wouldn't hurt because I'd said it first, you know. And it was this defense mechanism of, well, you're not going to hurt me. And it became a shell. It became a shell. So everyone knew Hayley as the mad girl, you know, the party girl, this, that, and the other. But inside, I was kind of missing something. Obviously, at the time, I didn't realize that it was possibly a love for myself more than anything. You know, we've all been told nowadays you need to love yourself first. And that's a big thing, because I don't think I liked myself very much, but I would make everybody else's evening wonderful, you know,
Mm.
but mine would be like, mm, nah.
Mm.
And it was difficult.
Isn't it funny? I used like donuts is something that I always refer to um, in terms of filling that hole. Like I'm almost 7 years sober from any mind altering substance and alcohol, but I can still turn to a donut. And it's not just one donut or a half a donut. It's it and maybe two. And I live around places where there's deluxe donuts and they're like those big guys. And
Oh,
anyway, my partner said to me the other day, "Isn't it funny you use something with a hole to
to fill
fill
the
a
hole.
hole?" And I was
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's a donut. You're using something with a, and it just doesn't work. And so as you go along on this journey, and I know that we're going to get into, the accident that you had, but before that, was there awareness around, the need to fill this hole?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because I think I married my now ex, thinking he would be my knight in shining armor. I expected
Mm.
him to feel everything that I needed. And you know how the story goes. It's not, it isn't. He didn't, and he couldn't. And I was never, I worked hard, but it was never quite good enough in his eyes, and it was like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And I think, because I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2010. And when I researched it and looked back, and I think, yeah, it was just this continual, I was in a continual stress mode of, I have to achieve, I have to, I have to do better or whatever. But my children came along in 97 and 2000, and I put everything I had into them, everything,
Mm. Mm.
probably too much, to be fair. And they were my life. They were absolutely my life. I worked around them, but we used to do amazing things. And I always said I would give them what I didn't have. And like you've said, I taught them the skills. Um, I like to think I gave them unconditional love. But if you were to look at the two girls now, and the difference in how they think they grew up is mind blowing.
Mm.
Absolutely mind blowing. I did exactly the same with both of them, but they have different views, different ideas, and certain situations. They might say, "Oh, do you remember this?" And I'm like, "But it didn't happen like that." No, it did. Okay,
Mm.
and it's really weird. But I found sort of I found the love I was missing in my children. So, and then from there, as I say, so when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I just put all the aches and pains and the fatigue and just feeling awful to being a mum and a businesswoman and, you know, running around at 27 million miles an hour, and then not really having a supportive husband. So I was kind of doing all of it. And in a way, it was a relief when I was diagnosed, because it was like, that makes sense. It now makes sense. And it was relatively new then, you know, it was fibro what? You know, it was relatively new.
What exactly is it?
Well, fibromyalgia, what it actually is, it's a chronic fatigue, I suppose disease is probably not the right word, but it's a symptom. And it's so vast because everybody who has fibromyalgia they've got a lot of the same symptoms, but they might have different things. So it's very difficult to diagnose. And for me, it was just the chronic fatigue. I ached from head to foot. The only way I can explain it for me was that, you know, when you get cramp and the after cramp, you know, that after niggly pain, I literally had that 24/7, couldn't get rid of it no matter what I did, even, you know, trying to sleep, rest, whatever. But as a busy mum and a business owner and a wife and everything else, you just push through. You just do. You don't have a choice. And then they put me on sort of various different drugs to help. Some of them were a bit weird, but then, you know, you get the measurement and everything was fine. So, and I think once I got the medication right, although I still suffered, I mean, if I'm honest, it took me 18 months even to acknowledge I had it. I was like, no, they've got it wrong. No, they're not right, you know. And then I had what we call a fibro flare. And that's where I just couldn't even lift my head off the pillow one day. And I thought, what on earth is going on with me? So I kind of took it seriously after that. So then, you know, obviously you go down that route of, I need to find something to help me. I need to find something, you know, to help me with this pain. And there wasn't really a great deal then, you know, but we're sort of 12 years on, and there's so many things out there that can help, you know, heat pads, cold pads, neck massages. There's so many things. So I didn't live the gregarious Hayley as much once I got the diagnosis, because I had to start looking after me. And that was a very difficult thing, because I'd never had to look after me. I was always looking after others. I was always out for them. Are you okay? And it was really difficult to think, I've got to say no to this, because no isn't a very easy word for a lot of us. It's a sentence. No is a sentence, but we just don't say it enough. And I had to start.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Do you remember saying no for the first time?
Yes, I remember. And I felt awful, but elated at the same time. And it was a friend. She needed me to go somewhere to pick, I can't remember what it was, to pick something up. And I felt so ill. And I just said, I'm just so sorry, Sarah. Well, I shouldn't really say her name, but I'm so sorry, Sarah, I can't do it. And she was sort of, oh, what do you mean? And I'm sitting there like cringing on the phone going, I just physically don't think I can get in the car and get over there. I need to rest. And she was very abrupt. Now, this is a normally really friendly, happy, lovely person. She was very abrupt. Oh, well, I have to do it myself then. I was like, okay. And I hung up and I was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But you know, afterwards, I felt elated. I thought, it wasn't that hard. And then I had great pride in going and laying on my settee, putting a blanket over me and having a little snooze. And I thought, oh, now this is what I'd rather be doing than sitting in traffic, going to pick up something that wasn't even relevant to me.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment. It was quite pinnacle, really. Bizarre, but pinnacle.
It's a beautiful story. I love it. Saying no is some of the hardest. It's like, you think that, no, I don't want to do that. Is like, we have the right to be able to say it, but it's something that we find it so hard. And I find it hard because I'm just so worried of what people will think of me. You know, it has nothing to do with, it's what they think of me.
But if you asked me to do something now and I said, I'm really sorry, Nick, I can't do it, would you think badly of me?
Oh gosh, no.
So why would I think badly of you if you said no to me?
Yeah.
And it's our self-belief of, oh my God, what will they think? Well, actually, it really matter, because like that lady, ironically, she didn't ask me to do anything ever again.
Yeah.
sh- it could have just been that one thing, but she didn't like the fact that I said no. But then
Yeah.
slowly I thought, but that's your issue, not my issue.
Yeah.
And that's a
Hayley,
hard.
do you have £1,000? Give me £1,000. You're right. I don't feel any worse for you. Well done.
Exactly. You see, it was
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. So life's kind of going on for you. You're learning how to say no. You're coping with fibromyalgia, and then you have an eventful day that just changes everything. Can you lead us up into that day and how your life changed?
I was running my own business, and it was sort of home accessories and candles, doing very, very well. And each year we'd have a conference, and the conference would be recognition and, a posh gala dinner, all this sort of thing. We'd all come together. It was amazing. And even though with my fibro, I was Hayley the mad woman, as we know. Anyway, this particular evening, and I wasn't going to go. That was the biggest thing for me, is I wasn't going to go this year. And one of my colleagues was going on her own. So I'm thinking, can't leave her on
Wow.
her own. So maybe I'm not quite there yet, or I wasn't. But anyway, so I thought, well, she can't go on her own. That's just not on. So I went with her, and we were sitting eating our usual chicken dinner, which is usually the course when you're at a big venue like that. And all of a sudden, I heard a commotion, didn't give it any thought. But then the next thing, I came round, and I was sort of being held sort of in a chair, sort of like this, and there was all pandemonium around me. I was in excruciating pain, didn't know what the hell had just happened. The room was so packed, they couldn't get an ambulance, a stretcher to me, or like anything. So they had to literally put me on a chair and carry me across to where they could. Then they had to bounce me down about 8 or 9 sets of steps. That was horrendous. And I was in excruciating pain. And I think that was the first time I ever tried morphine. And although it made me feel particularly
What
sick.
exactly happened? What happened?
Oh, yeah. So basically what happened was we were sat by a wall, but it was a temporary wall. So it was a temporary kind of like the way you dress a room. And it had fire exit on it. And it was a massive, thick wooden structure. And it was temporarily put there so that we could actually then go and sit, all over the room. But the waiting staff were going in and out of this fire exit. And we kept saying, you're not supposed to go in and out of a fire exit. That is wrong. So they didn't really, sorry if you hear a funny noise, that's my window cleaner. So then they kept going in and out. A couple of times myself and my colleagues got up and closed the curtains, because it had like a curtain rail, and we closed them, but they still kept doing it. So what happened is, as somebody was coming out of that door, somebody was going in, and there was a collision. Well, as they collided, this structure literally just tipped and literally fell on myself and 3 other ladies at the table. So apparently we were trapped under the table because it was a big old structure. From what I know, the lady who was holding my neck, she was actually a nurse anyway, and I probably wasn't out for long. To be fair, it may well have seemed longer, but it was probably only a minute, maybe that. So obviously they got the structure, and then the paramedics came, and there wasn't a broken bone between us, which we couldn't believe, but the internal damage to all of it, or the 3 of us, was horrendous. The lady who was next to me, she got it sort of smack bang in the back of the head. She started having epileptic fits. The other lady, the other side, she got hit this side of the face. No, this side of the face. So, and she had, just wave at me, window cleaner. She had a detached retina. And for me, I think because of my fibro and potentially the weakness in my spine, it kind of crushed me down. So as I went down, it crushed 3 of my lower discs. And that's literally what changed my life, basically. It literally, from that moment, my life changed, well, incomprehensibly. Didn't stay in hospital overnight. I think also I was high on the morphine. So I was absolutely fine sort of to leave hospital, etc. It was possibly when the morphine you know, sort of ran out, that the pain hit. And that
Mm.
to me, I've never felt anything like it. And I don't wish anybody to feel that pain ever.
No, no. What was it like? Like what? Like so you're out of the hospital now. You've got
I had to get,
condensed discs, and I imagine nerve damage and
yeah,
swelling, and the
absolutely.
painkillers ran off. And then how's from then on up to where you've gotten today? Tell us the
Well,
story.
I managed to get home. Don't know how. I think I laid on the back seat of my friend's car, you know, because we were up in Yorkshire, so we had to come
Mm.
down on the way home to Kent. And I got home, and it just, the only thing I can say is it got worse every day. Every day got worse and worse. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't hardly walk. My youngest daughter, bless her, was beside herself. She lived with me at the time, and she just couldn't believe the state I was in. Doctors prescribed, you know, I think just there were so many drugs, you know, tramadol, diazepam,
Mm.
all sorts. And in one sense, they kind of helped a little bit, but then it would come back with a vengeance. And
Mm.
then I'd get another one, and then it would come back with a vengeance. And I was finally at the top of the tree, which was Oromorph, which is the, you know, liquid morphine. And my life was like a dark hole for 4 years. 4 years, my life was the bed, get up from the bed, go to the settee, lay there, get up, go to bed. That was pretty much my life for 4 years. It was horrendous. And
Wow.
Hayley had gone, you know, and that for my daughter must have been awful, because she was used to me being always positive and don't worry, we'll get through this. And I just hated my life. And I think, if I'm completely honest, Nick, at one point I think I had 12 painkillers in my hand, and I thought if I took them all, the pain would go away. But I
Wow.
couldn't do it to my daughter. Couldn't. And I'm
Wow.
glad, you know,
Yeah.
but at the time I did not want to be on this earth, because I hated everything about my life. I hated me, the way I couldn't do stuff. I'd try stuff, couldn't do it, get frustrated, get upset. My daughter was great. She was like, Mum, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, yes, it does. You know, if I can't stand and chop a pepper, you know, what use am I, you know? And it was very difficult. And then because of that, your life becomes very insular. You lose friends along the way, because they love Hayley, the outgoing, mad, let's go out and party with Hayley. But slowly but surely, Hayley wasn't the Hayley, you know, and I didn't want to talk to anyone because I had nothing to say. I didn't want to see anyone because I didn't want them to see me like this. So I became very very insular, and it was a very lonely place.
I'm interested to know about the drugs, because you know, you're talking about morphine and, you know, kind of high dosages of
Yeah.
morphine and painkillers. Apart from numbing that pain and the numbing of the soul, I suppose, of what it does. Was there like what's it like? Like, describe what's it like living in that kind of painkiller world where you're kind of everything's a bit of a fog, and
Yeah.
you need it to relax, to take the pain away, but you know it's just kind of making you into this kind of non-human, non-Haley type person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember having really bad suicidal thoughts, really
Mm.
bad. And I think that was a side effect of one of the drugs. So luckily, I suppose I recognized it before I acted on it, I suppose, and stopped that. But it was, I would have days, I could honestly say, like with you say with the fog, I don't remember.
Mm.
I don't remember some of the days. And it just seemed I could be sitting on the settee watching a program, and then all of a sudden I'm watching that program, but I'm in different clothes, and I thought, well, when did I change?
Mm.
Or you know, and it was just a, it was like walking through treacle.
Mm.
Not a clue. It was um just the weirdest feeling in the world, is that I never had full days. There was bits missing, and I couldn't connect the dots. So even having a conversation, as I say, was really difficult. So I chose not to.
Mm.
So, and I do like to chat, as you've probably discovered. Um, and to have no conversation with anybody, even my daughter, you know, we used to sit and chat about all sorts, and we'd watch programs and chat about it, and I didn't want to talk.
You know how people talk about painkiller addiction, and how people, like, I hear it all the time. A guy at work goes, slips a disc, goes, gets prescriptions of everything up to fentanyl, and how they then become addicted to it, because at some point it gives them some kind of euphoric feeling. It gives them a feeling of elation, of connection. Was there any issues with that with you? Like, were there times where you were actually going, do you know what I mean, where it wasn't foggy, where you were actually, maybe becoming reliant on it in terms of feeling like some kind of feeling?
Well, I think because of the concoction maybe I was on. I mean, I used to get hallucinations when I was on the, I think it was slow release tramadol. I used to get hallucinations, and that was frightening because they weren't good. Men at the bottom of my bed with an axe and things like that, not good. And obviously in my condition, I can't move very fast. So it was a bit like, well,
that isn't good.
Yeah.
But
I think the only time I can say hand on heart that I kind of felt like, oh, this is amazing, was possibly when I started on the diazepam, because that's a muscle relaxant. So even though I was kind of flopsy and a bit like, I thought, oh, do you know what? I could cope with this. But again, I still couldn't move, couldn't walk very far or anything else. But it was kind of like, oh, I'm liking this. And the doctors accused me of being addicted. Maybe they were right, because I made every excuse in the sun to get more, because, I didn't want to be off them. So, yeah, I suppose it was that I'm never going to be without that. But then after a while, like most things, it then starts to go against you.
Yeah.
And then I was just even more of a zombie. And yeah, I can't remember the exact time that I sort of thought I've got to get off these as well. But it was difficult. Yeah.
And there was a time where the doctor said you were going to end up in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Basically, because of the compensation we were claiming, we had to go and see all sorts of specialist consultants, and I went to see a spinal consultant up in London. That was a trek in itself, getting up to London, as you can imagine. But and basically he looked at me and he said, well, you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 55. I kind of looked and said, well, is there an alternative? He went, no, not really. And
wow.
I was 48 at the time. And I thought, wow, that's what I've got to look forward to. Great. And that put me in another sort of dark spiral of depression, thinking, well, and that actually, I think, is when I had the 12 tablets in my hand and thought it'd just be better for everybody if I'm not here, because I don't want my daughter having to look after me. I don't want her to be my carer. That's not what I brought her into this world to do. She had aspirations, and, she was off at uni doing them. Why would I change all that? So yeah, that was a difficult one. And then I guess I got to the point, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily call it a da moment or a light bulb moment, but I think I just got to the point, there's got to be more. There has got to be more options. And with the Western world that we're looking in now, or the homeopathic natural worlds, and I'm thinking there's got to be more to it. There's got to be more to it. So that was then sort of when I started going down, the researching of, like I say, heat pads and things like that, thinking, well, it's got to help. They've got to help.
So you've had this kind of realization that you don't want to die, and you want to be there for your daughter around 48, 49 years old.
Yeah.
And I think this is the bit where, if anybody feels like this, or they're in some kind of chronic pain and it feels like that, is that there is a point where a spark of willingness can come from inside and just spark up here a bit of curiosity.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I had a full right hip replacement 6 months ago. There was no way out of that. I needed that done. But there's a lot of people who were diagnosed with needing a hip replacement, and they looked at alternative therapies and ended up not needing to go have such invasive surgery. Absolutely. And I think it's like having a curiosity to know that Western medicine is absolutely amazing and essential, but it's not everything. No. And that there are things that we can start to, explore just through that little willingness of wanting to live, and I know it sounds small, me saying a little willingness, but when you don't care if you live or die, that little willingness of like, I think I want to stick around tomorrow is a huge thing.
Absolutely.
Right. So and that gives people a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
So how did you, and what did you start to research?
Well, I researched alternatives, literally, because there's always new things coming on the market, always, there's always,
Mm,
that's progress, isn't it? There's always new inventions, or there's new this or new that. And to be honest, I tried a lot, and some worked okay, some didn't. But you know what? It's all trial and error. It is all trial and error. But then a friend reached out to me with these wacky socks, and I thought, what a load of old. Anyway,
mm,
but I thought, you know what, I'm willing to try anything. I am willing to try anything. And you know what, they helped so much. They really did, and I just thought, thank God I was looking. Thank God I didn't take those tablets, because I've got so much that I want to kind of still do,
mm,
but a different way. It's not the Hayley that was pre-accident. She's gone.
mhm,
She'll never come back because I can't do what I used to do. I miss dancing. That is the one thing I miss so much, is I used to dance the night away. But, I have hope that I'll get there. But it's kind of looking at the new inventions, looking at what it could do, how it could change my life and how it can change others, And thankfully, I'm now not on the morphine, tramadol, diazepam, I'm not on the
mhm,
hardcore ones. I slowly came off them. And you know what? It was weird because the clarity, I didn't
mm,
realize how deep I was in until I started reducing them. And all of a sudden I'd be like, wow, I know this sounds really stupid, but it's one of those moments. I could hear the birds.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, where have they been? Where have they been?
Mm,
But I think I
mm,
was so inwardly consumed, didn't hear anything really. And then I remember sort of sitting out, I think it was a sunny day, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit in the garden. And I just listened and thought, wow, birds are still there.
yeah.
Crazy, absolutely
Okay.
crazy.
What were the wacky socks?
Well, the wacky socks, I know the wacky socks. I call them the wacky socks, or the magic socks.
Yeah.
Well, what they are is they're a neurological pattern. It's like a thumbprint.
Mhm,
And what they do is they, from your feet upwards, a bit like reflexology, because that's all. I love reflexology. Where they rub your feet,
mm,
and sort of helps all different areas. Well, this is like a thumbprint, and it's on your feet, and it goes up to your brain, sends all these signals in your brain to go, right, well, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. We need to fix it. And it kind of, your whole neurological, I suppose, if you like, it puts you back on Wi-Fi, is what the way I can explain it. So you've been offline for years and years, and then these come along, you put them on, and you think, why is this happening to me? I don't understand what's going
mm,
on. But then the longer you wear them, the more you think, okay, this is, and you know what? The funny thing is, when I said to you earlier about, if I want to chop a pepper and I couldn't, the best thing ever was I stood there in the kitchen chopping a pepper. I dropped some on the floor, and I literally just bent down and picked it up. And my daughter looked at me and was like, what did you just do? I went, I have no idea, but I'm going to do it again. So I
yeah.
threw them on the floor again and thought,
Oh,
wow,
wow.
there is something in this,
Yeah.
So I started looking into it and thinking, oh my God, it doesn't contravene anything I'm taking. And it just helps me. And I know I'm not going to be cured. I know I've got it, but to actually have something that helps or assists me have a little bit more life,
Mm,
if I can now walk 10 minutes without pain instead of 3 minutes without pain, I can get that
mm,
7-8 minutes further.
mhm,
And I try to do things now. I didn't before because I knew it would be awful, it would be painful, just not worth it. Whereas now I think, do you know what? I'm going to try. And
mm,
if it doesn't work, okay, well, I tried. If it does work, what a great day. What an absolute great day. And honestly, I know it sounds really corny, Nick, but I wake up pretty much every day now with a smile on my face because I'm so happy, that I tried something that I thought was a load of,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I think that what it's done for me is made me, like, my journey over the last 7 years of healing and recoveries, and I'm really interested in the body, and I love listening to these people speak of the body. Like, we were like, I was told this thing of mind, body, and spirit, and that there was like this kind of three elements to us. And then somebody was like, we're just one element, it's all connected. Like, I used to think my brain was connected to my soul, and my soul was connected to my body, and my
Right.
body was, and I said this, my body was just a meat suit that was used to carry around my spirit. And someone was like, no, Nick, don't disparage your body like that. Your
Yeah.
body is your spirit. Your body is all of you. Your skin is your spirit. Everything's connected, and your nervous system, everything's flow. And we get blocked
Mm.
by traumas.
Yeah.
And trauma is not something, it's not the thing that happened to you. It's what's happened to your body as a result of what happened to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's Dr. Gabor Mate. And it can be a wall falling on you. It can be not feeling love as a child. It can seeing violence as a child, can be exposed to violence or sexual predators when you're young, creates blockages in our nervous system, in the way we flow.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about hearing what this product does for you is it just enables a little bit more of a realignment
Yeah.
of not just blood and stuff, but energy and spirit and flow to our bodies. And I know now when I take a donut, I deregulate,
Yeah.
you know, rather than having some broccoli and some fruit,
Yeah.
which
They
I
don't
know
taste nice, do they?
they don't, but I know they nurture, I know they love, I know they're from the earth. The
Yeah.
donut's not from the earth.
No.
So, and I think this is a good thing I think you're on the same thing as I was, just to be curious that this body isn't just a body. It's
No.
so much more.
So much.
And there are ways of, like, everything from meditation and
Yeah.
heat shock protein with cold plunges and saunas and
Oh,
nutrition and exercise.
yeah.
All of these things that are they're not readily available, I should say, but they are available to people, if you were a little bit curious and you kind of seek it out,
One of the
rather
things,
than,
sorry,
sorry.
one of the things I notice most of all is that my balance, because I obviously with crushed discs, your core's not necessarily, if you like,
Mm,
stable. And one of the things, because I did fall over quite frequently, and I was forever covered in bruises, but it became the norm. And I kind of was wearing them, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, I haven't fallen over for a while. That's good. That's great. And I noticed that my balance was so much stronger.
mm,
And there are so many people, like, like our super seniors, that worry about going out because of their balance. Literally
yeah,
just that, just because of
yeah,
their balance, nothing else. And the fear of falling is awful anyway.
yeah.
As I say, I got used to it. I've had a few sort of fractured wrists and things from falling over, but touch wood, which I need to.
Mm,
I haven't had a fall, since. So even something as simple as, although it's not simple, but even as something as simple as balance, if your
yeah,
body is in balance, the rest of you is in balance, and you just sort of think, well, if I can walk and know I'm not going to fall over, I'll walk a bit further,
yeah.
and that's, wonderful.
Do you have someone at the
Oh,
door
not
as opposed?
particularly, he wants money, so I'm not going to
Oh,
answer.
okay. Well, I want to. We do have to wrap up now. I
Yes.
told you 45 minutes go flies by, but what's life for new Hayley? Well, don't say old Hayley coming back, but
No.
for the evolved
The
Hayley, what's life like?
Hayley Mark II.
Yeah,
That's what I call her
what's
now.
life like for you today?
Um, I have good days and bad days still, but the bad days are nowhere near the bad days I used to have. The bad day for me is, you know what, I'm going to sit on the settee, I'm going to snuggle a bit, maybe read a book or something. But on a good day, I get out, I go and see people, I go for lovely short walks, and making sure, there's sort of places I can sit along the way. But life with Hayley is, there is pain, but it's nowhere near as consuming, overwhelming, unless I do too much. But 9 times out of 10 on my daily, I can cope with this pain now. Before, I couldn't cope with it. It was all consuming, everything. It was my aura, you know, whereas now I'm like, right, I'm in a little bit of pain, so I'm going to take it easy today, see how I feel tomorrow. And I think, if I'm honest, Nick, I'm not hard on myself anymore. That was a big thing. I was hard on myself because I was like, you should be able to do this. You should be, because in here I still can, you know, you should be able to do this. You should be. And now I just say to myself, well, if it don't get done, if it don't get done. So Hayley is a happy Hayley. And as I say, sounds really weird, but I tend to have a smile on my face pretty much every day because I am now 55 and I'm not in that wheelchair.
Hallelujah. You've put a smile on my face. Keep doing what you're doing, Hayley. You're an amazing lady. You've got an amazing story. Keep telling it.
Thank
you. And I think that if anybody's heard anything today, it's be curious. Just be curious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Look anywhere and everywhere. You never know.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me, and thanks everybody in the community for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of the week. Don't forget to join me on Thursday for a Tough Through Tender gathering, and also next Tuesday for another Facebook Live. We'll see you all then. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.